The Claire Byrne Show on Newstalk.
With Aviva Insurance.
There's a young American politician making waves in the Democratic Party, and it feels like he's one to watch. It's Senator Jon Ossoff. Let's take a listen.
Donald Trump is a symptom of a deeper disease. Decades of deepening political corruption, growing inequality of power and wealth. These are the failures of an ancient and visionless political class entrenched in a system built to keep them in office forever. And on their watch, the national spirit that defeated fascism, that landed men on the moon, that passed civil rights laws, was replaced by a small and selfish politics.
Well, here to tell me more about Jon Ossoff is Simon Marks, chief correspondent with Feature Story News. And Simon, people are saying that even his cadence is reminiscent of Barack Obama. There are high hopes in the Democratic Party for this guy?
There definitely are, Claire. There's no question about that. And I think you're absolutely right to cite him as one to watch, not least because of his relative youth. He's 39 years old. He is the youngest member of the Senate. And if he succeeds, and it is still a big if, in securing re-election this November, then he may well find himself in a situation where he can build a scaffold that perhaps later allows him to seek the United States presidency. Mr. Ossoff is considered one of the most vulnerable incumbents on either sides of the political aisle as far as the midterm elections are concerned this November, but he's been delivered two significant gifts by President Trump just over the last month that may considerably aid his re-election efforts. First of all, of course, the posting of that shameful racist meme regarding the Obamas that the president insists was inadvertently included in a video that he posted on his social media feed several days ago. That is something that Mr. Ossoff immediately capitalized upon, and indeed within 48 hours was addressing rallies in Atlanta, which of course is a city with a very sizable African-American population, and accusing Donald Trump of behaving like a member of the Ku Klux Klan. But the other issue that is possibly going to help him significantly was the FBI's decision to conduct a raid on an election storage facility in Fulton County, again in Atlanta, where the FBI carted off 700 boxes of votes from the 2020 election, plus the Fulton County electoral register, as they try to concoct a case to support President Trump's false contention that the 2020 election on a national level was rigged and that he, not Joe Biden, won the presidency. On both of those issues, Jon Ossoff is able to make considerable hay, not just in Atlanta, but obviously in other parts of Georgia as well. Mm-hmm. He's beaten off tough Republican opponents in the past, at least the first time that he ran for the Senate, although that race went to a runoff. This time round, definitely vulnerable, but increasingly looking like someone who may be able to secure a return to his seat once this year is all wrapped up.
So give us a sense then of who he is, what his background is, how he came to politics, Simon.
Well, he's a former journalist. He actually served as a filmmaker and an investigative journalist before dipping his toes into political waters. He was a documentary producer. He then became the managing director of a production company that created independent documentaries, and then decided to enter politics. He ran initially for a seat in the House of Representatives, but was defeated in that race, and then refocused himself in order to seek the US Senate seat that he currently occupies. He comes, as you could probably hear from those clips, from the progressive left of the Democratic Party. And that, of course, is one reason why, particularly among younger grassroots Democrats, he is becoming a considerable figure of hope hope for them. I mean, there are others out there as well, of course, people like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. She was at the Munich Security Conference over the weekend, giving voice to her foreign policy ideas as she perhaps prepares for a presidential run. But it is the fact that Jon Ossoff is potentially in a position to build his own political movement from a Senate seat that gives him considerable latitude to start thinking about becoming a Democratic Party's standard bearer. And remember, of course, because he is only 39, he is coming from a generation that has been battling to secure more authority and greater positions of influence within a Democratic Party that even now is still struggling to rid itself of the old guard. People like Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. Nancy Pelosi, still currently a figure. She was also in Munich at the security conference. So he is seen as the kind of figure, the kind of younger generation politician who could significantly help advance things for a Democratic Party that, let's be honest, over the course of the last year has been completely eclipsed by President Donald Trump and has substantially lost its way.
So would you put him in a group of front runners for the Democrats looking ahead to 2028 and the presidential election?
I think he's much more likely to be a runner and rider in 2032. He might have vice presidential timber in 2028. I just think it's very difficult to imagine him, putting all of his eggs into the Senate race this year and then very quickly turning around and saying, right, I now want to campaign for the presidency. Although remember that there is, of course, precedent for that in the form of former President Barack Obama, who had spent about 5 minutes in the Senate by the time he decided to launch a presidential run and succeeded in securing the keys to the White House. So I wouldn't write off his possibilities for 2028, but his biggest challenge right now is making sure that he gets back into the Senate next January.
OK, now, Simon, another story I wanted to ask you about. We've been covering it here regularly on the programme. This is the disappearance and search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the US TV presenter. What's the latest on the search?
Well, the latest is they're still looking, and I think judging from the video that Savannah Guthrie, the NBC presenter and daughter of Nancy Guthrie, her latest video was released to the public last night. It looks as though the family is now increasingly desperate. It is more than 2 weeks since Nancy Guthrie disappeared. Savannah Guthrie looked exhausted, haggard, emotionally drained in the video last night, in which she was begging whoever was involved in the abduction and disappearance of her mother to come forward, saying it's never too late to do the right thing. But the investigation, if it is making any progress, is making slow progress. We know that a glove was found last week near the house in which Nancy Guthrie lived, and that it's been tested for DNA, and it shows the same DNA that was found inside the house. So they believe it's the DNA of the principal suspect, the man that you see on the doorbell video footage, trying to disable the doorbell footage, dressed in a full balaclava mask, dressed in gloves. It's not one of those gloves, we believe, that they found near the scene, but a different glove. But in terms of whether that DNA is leading them to be able to identify this suspect and find him, that is very unclear. A number of people have been picked up and taken in for questioning and then released. And again, the fact that that glove was found so many days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared is raising fresh questions about whether sufficient resources, both local and federal, were brought to the investigation quickly enough.
Simon, thank you very much for that update. Simon Marks, Chief Correspondent with Feature Story News.